Yes, we all make mistakes, but most of us don't drop down out of the ceiling with a gun and shoot a man in the head.
And that's the Honorable Judge Jackson dropping a mic. And I am so happy that she is here to take on this case. We're about to jump into a parole hearing for a man in 2001 did an armed robbery that, well, resulted in murder. Anyways, I'll unpack it with all the details of the appeal at the end.
All right. So you are Kelvin C. Thomas, DOC number 404783. You're classified as a second felony offender. You are currently serving a 45-year sentence. You haven't been sentenced in June of 2012 as a habitual offender for manslaughter. You have a parole eligibility date later this year, October 4th, 2022. Your good time date is March 30th, 2045, with a full term date March 25th, 2046. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, would you answer Ms. Wise, please?
Good morning, Mr. Thomas.
Good morning, ma'am.
I was assigned your case, so I'll be interviewing you first. Tell me how long you've been in jail on this charge.
21 years.
Okay, so got arrested in 2001 and you weren't convicted until 2012.
I was
Right.
convicted in '08.
You were convicted in '08, okay. You were convicted in '08, then what happened in 2012?
2012. I was taken back to court for, and my charge was vacated for habitual offender.
Oh, okay, that's what happened, okay. Okay, so 21 years on you are now 45-year sentence. So tell me what happened, sir. Why are you in jail?
I got involved in some things that I shouldn't have got involved in. And I went to this place of business, which was going, me and a guy that was doing business. And it had this other guy that his intentions was on robbing the guy or the place. By me being in a facility, when everything happened, it happened so fast to where I really wasn't closely paying attention of my full surroundings of the people that was around me. And when it came about, I just reacted to what was going on in front of me. I never, it wasn't actually, nothing was intentional, but at the same time, I was there. And when a gun was pulled, I panicked. The victim was hit with a tire tool. Something was taken out of his hand, something silver. I wasn't really sure what was happening. The victim, he ran, but when he ran kind of close to me and he swung the tire tool. I reacted to that and I ran behind him. I went to swing the pistol, and when I swung the pistol, it caught on the back part of his collar. And when he moved, the gun automatically went off. Not knowing exactly what happened, I seen what happened, but I kept moving past him. In a sense, I stopped and I left.
So you went there with the intention of robbing that business?
No, ma'am.
What was your intent?
My intention, I went there to pick up some money. And it had some other
Pick up some
guys
money
that was
from,
there. Ma'am?
pick up some money from who?
From the victim.
Oh, okay. You were there to pick up some money from him.
Yes,
He owed you money?
yes.
What kind of relationship did you have with the victim?
Marijuana. Purchasing marijuana.
Oh, you were his dealer,
Sort of.
sir?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for clearing that up. I read the police report and it was a tragic day. It's very, very tragic. And the families here, and they are opposed. On record, the victim's family are very opposed to your early release. The record shows you have 365 days of programs. So you've been busy in these 21 years. So call out the top 3 programs that you've taken that really meant the most to you.
First one was the organization that I became a member of, which was BBOA, which is Benevolent Brothers of Allen. Stay Out, Get Out, Stay Out program, and Nurturing Parenting program. The organization that I was in, it gave me the tools to understand more, better, and officially who I was as a person. It allowed me to understand value of life, and it gave me the opportunity to actually be able to help others in situations that I was once in, to kind of give them the tools and opportunities to show them that it's better ways than what to choose from that we actually have at hand. The Nurturing Parenting class, it taught me more about parenting. My children was born when I was young, and I really didn't know how to actually raise them as a father. And this class here gave me gave me more understanding to where the children is actually more needed of you instead of just actually trying to purchase things and buy them things. It was basically timing that I should have placed as in leisure time more with them than my own priorities. And
So true. So true. Go ahead.
And for the other class, which is Stay Out, Get Out, the understanding in this class was actually just to respect everything around you, the human life, nature life, and it kind of runs down to the opportunities that we actually have other than actually going back into the streets or committing whatever crime it is that we may have in front of us. So, well, at the time, I didn't actually understand. I knew it, but I didn't know how to speak to people. I didn't know how to take my problems or my emotions to people and express it to them. I was more of a shy type person, but I kind of kept everything inside. But this here allows me to see the people that's in front of me as a support and to go to them and ask them for the support that I need, any type of advice or asking my mother.
I got Mr. Thomas. Let me stop you there. The record shows that you're the father of 5 children and you have 3 mothers. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of relationship do you have with the children now? Any contact?
It's a beautiful relationship. All my kids, we get along pretty good. We communicate with them all.
Okay. You had a contraband write-up in 2010. What was that contraband?
I had a bottle of ibuprofen pills.
I didn't hear you.
Ibuprofen pills.
Oh, ibuprofen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. They prescribed for you?
I bought them at a facility, the Huntsville Correctional Facility. And when I got shipped to Allen, I still had them. I ended up going to the cell block and they shook down and found the pills and wrote me up for them.
Okay, all right. Okay. I see on the record that you earned your GED in 2016, but that wasn't one of your top 3. But I want to commend you on that. They don't give those away. What's your current job in the prison?
I work in the kitchen as a kitchen clerk.
A kitchen clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
How long you got that job?
5 years.
5 years, okay. If you were successful today, where would you live and how would you support yourself?
I would live with my mother. I have a job set up working in the florist, and I have an uncle which is setting up some things for me to help him out in the business that he has.
Working in the florist. I mean, what would your job be in the florist?
Delivery, taking orders, inventory.
When I look at the record, it seems like you were on supervision when you did this crime. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but so you were still actively dealing drugs on supervision. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I do want to advise you that law enforcement is opposed to your early release. There's nothing you can do about it, but I just want to state that on the record. There's an indication that you are eligible for substance abuse treatment. Do you think you need any kind of treatment?
Yes, ma'am.
What was your drug of choice?
Marijuana.
What age did you start?
Ma'am,
What age did you start using marijuana?
15.
Have you put in for it? Have you requested substance abuse treatment?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you have?
Yes, ma'am. I took AA class and the other class for it, but yes, ma'am. I still I don't actually desire the drug anymore, but I do still feel that I need a little help with it.
Okay, because well, I'm not seeing living in balance that has drug treatment in it. So you took AA classes, that's the one thing we take it for
AA.
substance.
AA and other substance abuse.
Okay, and you're in Cajun rate now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Graduated, okay, you started that, okay. In January, okay. All right, that's all I had. What can you share with us about Mr. Thomas? Thank you for answering my question.
Well, Kelvin transferred to us back in 17, and since he's been here, he hasn't had any disciplinary issues at all. All those disciplinary reports from prior to. He's been pretty active in programming. He's taken 9 different programs since he's been here. Now, when we talked yesterday, we did talk about the living in balance. That's the one class that we feel that he should have probably taken, so he is aware of that. He has been placed on the backlog. So, but other than that, there's really no issues with him. I mean, we haven't had any issues. Like I say, he's been here since 17. Conduct's pretty clean.
I do want to stay on the record. I think you've had 3 write-ups in 21 years. Is that correct, Mr. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, 4. Where was it 20? How many was it? How many last 21 years?
How many in 21 years?
So how many write-ups have you had in the last 21 years?
3.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Ms. Jackson has some questions.
Good morning, Mr. Thomas. My name is Bonnie Jackson, and I'd like to ask you some questions. Do you think it's important for a person who has committed a crime or caused harm to accept responsibility for their actions?
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you think that's important?
Because accepting the responsibility, it allows the person to understand what they have done, and the conscience of a person not accepting it, it takes away the value of it. And for me to actually accept it is that I understand what I've done. I understand that I was in the wrong. I understand that everything that happened shouldn't have happened, but it did.
Thank you. But let me just go back to that point, because when Ms. Wise asked you to tell us what happened, she didn't ask you that because we don't have the facts in front of us. The reason we asked that is to find out, 1, your level of honesty, and 2, your willingness to accept responsibility for what you've done. And you yourself, acceptance of responsibility is really a necessary step in the rehabilitation process. And you claim that you went into the store, you didn't know what was going to happen, things just happened all of a sudden, the victim was running towards you, something in his hand, and you shot. But the record indicates that you and 2 other people, one of whom was an employee of the Piggly Wiggly, had planned to commit this robbery. After the store closed on the day of the offense, 2 offenders, that being you and Christopher Johnson, entered the store from the ceiling. You all have been hiding out in the ceiling, waiting for the opportune time. And you all made noise in the ceiling, which caused another employee to shout out, call 911. Kelvin Thomas was armed with a handgun while Christopher Johnson had a crowbar and 3 rolls of duct tape. Mr. Bazile, who was a gentleman who was murdered, gained control of the crowbar and attempted to, get out of the situation that you all had put him in. And Mr. Johnson took the crowbar and beat Mr. Bazile repeatedly with the crowbar. Mr. Bazile tried to flee the store, at which time Kelvin Thomas shot him in the head. The employee, Gary Matthews, was the person who helped you all plan the robbery, and he fled out the back door. Now that's totally different from what you told Ms. Wallace. That was totally different. How could you say you didn't know what was going on when you guys came out of the ceiling armed with a gun, crowbar, and duct tape? So why would you not be honest, Mr. Thomas, and acknowledge what you had actually done in this case? Tell us why it's so difficult for you to be truthful about this.
Well, understand what's been read and understand what majority of things have happened. But as in the guys, the fellas, which is Christopher Johnson and Mr. Matthews, it was actually another guy that was involved. Was never.
Oh, wait, sir, did you and Mr. Johnson enter the store through the ceiling?
I didn't enter the store with Mr. Johnson, no.
Did you enter the store through the ceiling?
No, ma'am.
I don't have anything else, Mr. Thomas, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll hear from your family members, those who are here in support, and we'd like to start with your mother, Mrs. Thomas. Go ahead, Ms. Thomas. You have to take your microphone off of mute.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here on the behalf of my son, Kelvin Thomas, which from a young child, he was always willing to help others in any circumstances. He's a very gentle, loving person, and he's always accomplished what he intended to do. When he was coming up, he was well mannered. I mean, he Christian environment, always yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, always willing to help others. And also, during his jail time, Kevin has reached out to so many people, to my understanding, and I have inmates. He have provided support with them, social, emotional, pray with them, have Bible study with them. He have did a lot GED program. He has worked with others, being respectful, like he has been raised to be respectful. And I'd like to say also that he's very involved with his siblings, his family members. He has a lot of support. And if he's released from jail, he also has a lot of support. He would have meetings. I mean, and I know he'll be an asset to the community by giving back. Senior citizen program, youth program, that he expressed to me that he would love to help the youth to commit violence, so that would be no violence or crimes. He would like to help have a organization that has of that sort, and we are willing to help him to give back to the community and to help others, whether it be through senior citizen, youth environment, whatever he wants to do. His whole entire family is willing to help him. And he's really is a good person. He's not a bad person. And I'm not saying that because I'm his mother. I have seen that over the years, what kind of person he from a child, what kind of person he is.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. We appreciate
You're
your
welcome.
input.
Mhm.
Can we hear from Ms. Florencia Robinson?
Hello, I'm the victim's daughter, Clarencia. I'm sorry, I said the wrong one. I'm sorry.
Mr. Thomas's daughter.
Yes, I'm Mr. Thomas's daughter. I'm so sorry.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am. We'd like to hear from you.
Yes, ma'am. Even though I know my dad went in when I was about 7 or 8. But even though I didn't have him physically, I mean, he's always been there. He wasn't there physically, but like if I had a problem, I could always get word to him. He would always call me, basically parent through the phone. Like, I don't feel like this is my first time hearing exactly what happened. So I was kind of like, wow, but that's not who he is. I would say like that's not where I get from him. Like I said, he wasn't there physically, but I can always go to my dad like, hey, I have this issue. And I can say that he kept me out of trouble because some stuff that I would want to do coming up from the environment that I have went to foster care as a child. So I can understand, like, he'll be like, no, even though you're going through this, but don't do that. Like he corrected what was going on. So I feel like it's time. I have children now. The one that's with the pink on behind me, she currently has liver cancer, and she doesn't have her dad either. So I would want him. They know of him, but they don't know him, and I want my kids to know him. So that's why I feel like he should be given a second chance.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Miss Lisa Davis.
Good morning. First, I would like to thank the board for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I grew up with Kevin, and we were so tight. It was me. He has a twin and another sister now, and a brother. But the four of us were always just like thick as thieves. If you seen one, you seen the other. Not saying this is an excuse or anything, but my cousin lost his dad when he was really, really young. And we know without a father figure, sometimes we get off to the wrong road. My cousin is a loving person. I know people have said that, and are trying to figure out if this person is such a loving person. Well, how did he end up like this? As I look over my life, I realize that I've made some poor decisions and some poor choices, and even made some mistakes. But I think we all have made mistakes, not to certain degrees, but I feel like everybody deserves a second chance. And all of the rapport that we've heard from the facilities and the police officers, how he's such a humble person and how he has changed. We have to also understand that when Kevin went to prison and when all this happened, he was just nearly becoming an adult. He's spent over 21 years in prison. Now he's a man and he can take responsibility for the things that has happened in the past. But I feel like we provide as a community and as a state adequate rehabilitation services to allow people to make mistakes and be able to have a second chance. I trust in the government, in the system, to provide this service for not just him, but for everybody that comes into the facilities. I feel like he will be an example where he can go out into the community and stop other kids from coming out like him. We need him in the community to show them this is not how they want to go. This is not the life that they want to live. And who better to be able to explain and bring our youth that's troubled, that are headed down the wrong road, than somebody who's already been through it. So I feel like he deserves a second chance. He's already been spent 21 years in jail, and I know you can't replace a life, but who can say that they never made a mistake or been in a situation that they regretted where they were and not even and learn from that mistakes? We have to own up to what we have done, own up to our mistakes, and be able to become a better person. That's why we are here, to continue to be a better person. And I feel like he has such a great support system, and he might have not knew that then, because after his dad died, he might have felt lost or alone or whatever. We don't know what he was going through, but I hope that he knows now that we love him and we care for him, and we will be there to support him and make sure that he stays on track. And not only that, but to continue the work that he started even in prison, the ministry, and helping other people so that they will also be able to have a second chance at life.
Well, thank you. All right, now we'll be hearing from the opposition. We'll hear from Mr. Charles Basile. Good morning, sir. Can you unmute your microphone?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, go ahead.
The reason why I really don't think he should get out of prison. Number one, he murdered my brother on March the 27th, 2001. At that time, my stepbrother was a chief of the fire chief in Independence, Louisiana. He's the one that called us up and told us our brother is dead. He was murdered, cold-blooded murder. So he need to stay. If he gets out, he's going to wind up killing somebody else. And we don't want it to happen to nobody else for the pain that we suffer. I lost my sister on kind of all that. I lost my stepbrother, Johnny Polita. He was the fire chief in Independence. He's gone. I mean, it's just the one thing on top of another one. But my brother was murdered on March the 27th, 2001. And the guys was hiding back there in the attic. And when he went back there to do something, they made him go to the office and demand money for them. And he wouldn't do it because he thought the world of the manager over there and her husband, Paul and Mary Francis, the owner of Piggly Wiggly. And he shook the world, ma'am, when we got that call on March the 27th, 2001, saying your baby brother was murdered. And he shouldn't get a second chance, because if he did it once, he's going to do it again. I think he should get life in prison where he cannot hurt anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. God bless.
Thank you. Mr. Daniels with the DA's office.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you to the board for the time. We are voicing an opposition in support of the victim's family. I will note two things I noticed when listening is our records indicate he may actually be a third felony offender, but that his 2 prior felonies occurred before the 2004 change in the habitual offender law. Docket numbers out of West Baton Rouge being 918642, November 16th, 1998 conviction for possession of cocaine, as well as docket number 981968, a distinct docket number for possession with the intent to distribute cocaine. So in addition to having possibly one more egregious felony, the possession with intent to distribute cocaine in his history, I believe he benefited in my review of the record from a recantation by a co-defendant who was induced to testify against him. This board obviously has a great number of materials. I found the opinion of the First Circuit in 2010 KA 1637 very informative, and I believe former Judge Jackson's assessment of the facts was correct. This was a robbery that was planned ahead of time. This was committed not in a heat of passion or in a sudden incident. It was meticulously planned and executed. Mr. Christopher Johnson, a co-defendant, did fail at trial to identify Mr. Thomas, as he had agreed to in a previous statement, and I believe that that benefited him. I believe that the facts are egregious in this, and this was while a manslaughter conviction, this was a felony murder. I do not believe he has shown remorse or taken responsibility for his actions, and our office's position is that the pretrial length from the 2000 or 2001 arrest to the trial dragged the family through a very long and painful process. The parole hearing system, while he's entitled to it, is again dragging the family back through the process. And it is one where I do not believe Mr. Thomas should be considered favorably by this board, and we would voice an opposition based on his history and based on the egregious facts in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. All right, Mr. Thomas, is there a statement you'd like to make to the board before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to first I want to apologize to the victim's brother. I want to apologize for all the pain that I caused him, caused his family. For what happened should have never happened. And I take, it's just, I'm very sorry. I never meant to hurt you nor your family. I never meant to do anything that was done. And if you can find in your heart, sir, to forgive me,
Speak to the board, sir. Don't speak to Mr. Bassino.
Sorry. But I'd like to also apologize to my family. I'd like to apologize to my mother, my children, for everything that I put y'all through. I thank y'all for your support that they gave me. And I apologize to them for everything I put them through. I put them through a lot. I put them through things. I put the victim's family through things. I put everybody in a position which should have never happened. And I'm very, very sorry for it. It's throughout this prison time, it has showed me and it taught me a whole lot more of life and value. And it has given me opportunity to understand my actions and everything that have to come forward. I now know and understand the truth of life and value. I wake up every day thanking God. I wake up every day with it on my mind of accomplishing better things in life to help people, to keep them from actually making bad decisions, try to give them the tools to actually make more sound decisions than what I have made. And for the pain and suffering that I have caused, it should have never happened. And it's really no words that I could put into that I'm just sorry for everything I've done. And for y'all time is very valuable, and I appreciate your time. But I have now things to where I can do to help the communities. I can help people understand things to where we don't have to go through the thing that we go through just because of the neighborhood that we have lived in, or the pain that we probably have suffered from coming up as youngsters, but to actually lead them in a better direction. And it's a lot of things that's going on in the world that I feel that it could be helped by people that actually coming out of prison, that actually have the experience of actually dealing with these situations, actually have an understanding. And also dealing with the prison staff, they help a lot with the things that we go through, dealing with the jobs or anything that we may need. We can go to an officer or whatnot, and they will actually give us a better way of actually making the decision. So I also appreciate them.
Mr. Thomas, wrap it up.
That's it, ma'am. I thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we'll start with Ms. Watts.
All right, thank you. I just want to appreciate Mr. Vincent's brother for being here today. I know this was courageous, and it was important that you participated in the process, as well as Mr. Thomas' family. You are fortunate to have this much family support. But for me today, my vote is to deny because of the opposition that's been expressed from the family and the law enforcement community, and because of the poor supervision, supervision when you committed this offense. I do set forth the recommendation that you get involved in long-term substance abuse treatment and reapply after you completed that. You do have an excellent institutional record. Thank you. That's my vote.
Ms. Jackson?
Mr. Thomas, I acknowledge that you have done, you've behaved well in prison. You only had a few write-ups, you participated in a lot of programs. But for me, I struggle with the fact that you have continued to minimize what you did in this case. And for me, you know, if your goal is to talk to young men who might fall in the same situation, you can't be out there lying to them about what you did or didn't do. They see through that. I see that you've taken a lot of faith-based programs. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to direct your attention to 1 John, chapter 1, verse 9. I want you to go and meditate on that. I want you to spend a lot of time meditating on what that says and what that means. But there's strong opposition from the entire legal community. There's opposition from Mr. Basile's brother and the nature of the offense itself. And I'm just going to say this, and I know when people speak, they don't mean harm. But yeah, we all make mistakes. But to equate a murder to a mistake similar to the mistakes that we all make is really hurtful and offensive to the victim's family. Yes, we all make mistakes, but most of us don't drop down out of the ceiling with a gun and shoot a man in the head. And that minimizes and diminishes what the offender has done when you equate that behavior to saying we all make mistakes. Well, we all don't do that. The vast majority of people do not do that. And it's offensive to tell a victim or say to the victim, well, we've all made mistakes. That's not a mistake. That was an act of calculation and choice. And so in the future, let's not hear those kinds of comments again, because you can't equate a mistake that we all make to the nature of the offense in this case. So you've done well. I'm going to encourage you to keep working. You might need to take victim awareness so that you truly understand the magnitude of what you've done to this family and the harm that you caused. And reapply again when you're able. But in the meantime, I want you to spend a lot of time in 1 John 1:9. Okay? All right. My vote today is to deny.
Mr. Thomas, this is your first opportunity of parole hearing. And I think at some point you weren't eligible for parole, so, and you have done some good programs. I think you still have a little more work to do. As has been suggested, I strongly recommend the victim awareness. Ward Millis has indicated you're on the backlog for the substance abuse program, so take advantage of that opportunity as well. My vote today, based on the opposition that's been expressed here today, is to deny your parole, but I strongly encourage you to reapply once you've completed those programs and you're eligible to do so. Good luck to you, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so let's unpack this, and we have information. Thank you, Sir Richard, for providing it. But first, let me get a few words off of my chest on this. One is just thank God for Miss Jackson, because, it's always with the Miss Wise interviews that, it's ask the questions, he lies through his teeth, and it would just keep going on. And I don't know. Is it that Miss Wise knows that Judge Jackson is there, so she just I see some of you in the comments like, no, see, she's being nice. It's like a good cop, bad cop read technique thing, and I don't know. I don't really buy it. We've seen enough parole hearings in other states like Iowa and Connecticut where they'll just let it go. They'll be like, sure, yeah, whatever. Oh, okay. I'll take your word for it. So, Judge Jackson, she did her homework. She read through the appeals and she did not let it go. And then you have like the surprise visit from the DA that shows up, and you have the victim's brother who spoke very well. And what leads up to it so often in these cases, what leads up to what prefaces the victim impact statements are supporting arguments that are rainbows, turtles, butterflies, hippy dippy stuff, and that is nonsensical and really, frankly, ridiculous. And I wanted to fast forward it, but I didn't, and I didn't because I think it has to be seen just how ridiculous it is, and it kind of like leads into then the real stuff, the victim impact statements by the brother, by the DA, and you can actually see the difference. And what we see so often, I think, is that the person who shows up to the parole hearing and then lies and is in complete denial often has supporting friends or family that are encouraging it. They're not they're not doing what's best for their loved one by saying, hey, you really screwed up, you got to own up to it, you got to, and like what Miss Jackson really said with the mic drop there with the Bible verse. It's just it's that's really what needs to be happening. And instead, they're saying things like everyone makes a mistake, and he's a great guy, and all what we always hear, a pillar of our family, the backbone of our family. And anyways, so we've gone through that, and why he would all these years later deny it is puzzling to me. Now, let's go through the appeal. With you, there's a bunch, but I'll go through it. Basically, March 26, 2001, the victim was shot to death during an attempted armed robbery by two men at Piggly Wiggly grocery store. I like that name, Piggly Wiggly. In Independence, Louisiana, the attempted armed robbery and subsequent shooting occurred after the store had closed for the evening, and while several employees were performing their routine nightly tasks. Prior to the shooting, Basile and another employee, Gary, were talking with Roy Navarra, a part owner of the Piggly Wiggly in the rear of the store. As the men talked, a masked individual appeared behind Basile and began to strike him with a lug wrench. I mean, if you can even imagine. Soon thereafter, a second perpetrator appeared and held a gun to the back of his head. The perpetrator began to march to the store to employee's stockroom. After everyone reached the stockroom, Basile ran to the front of the store and began yelling for someone to call 911. Now, both perpetrators followed behind him. And this is a story that he explained to Miss Wise. I saw the lug wrench. He took it. I ran after him. He moved, and the gun went off. And they all have these guns that just go off by themselves. They all have that in common. It's the funniest thing. During the ensuing chase, the victim was shot and killed by a single gunshot wound to his neck. Following the shooting, at least one of the perpetrators tried unsuccessfully to break into the store's office, where the two other employees had hidden. Defendant Johnson was apprehended on the evening of the incident. He later gave a statement to police, admitted his involvement, but stressed that no one was supposed to get hurt during the robbery. And then this is the heroic action of the man who died that his brother was talking about. So Detective Baham testified at trial regarding the statement given the following his arrest. After the defendant was arrested and informed of his Miranda rights, he agreed to speak to the detective. In his statement, the defendant described that he and his accomplice hid in the Piggly Wiggly store for a few hours prior to the robbery. And what did he say? No, I didn't go in there for robbery. He owed me money. Well, like, what are you saying? Oh my God. Once the store closed, he and Thomas intended to tie up any store employees using duct tape in order to rob the store. The defendant described to the detective that the victim took a heroic action, spun to confront him, so the defendant hit him several times with the lug wrench. During this struggle, the victim apparently took the lug wrench from the defendant's possession, so that part is accurate with his story to Miss Wise. When the victim subsequently ran towards the front of the store, both defendant and his accomplice ran after him. Defendant told detective that at that point, Mr. Navarro began to run in a different direction. Defendant split from his accomplice and began to pursue Mr. Navarro. When the defendant heard the gunshot, he ran back to the front of the store. So this is his co-defendant's appeal, apparently. There he said his accomplice or just testimony against him. There he said that his accomplice began to hit the defendant with an attempt to gain entry, but they were unsuccessful. They ultimately fled through the front door. Although the defendant argues on appeal that the state failed to prove his intent to commit second-degree murder, the proof is unnecessary under these circumstances. It's not. It's and then there was one more part where they spoke about basically what happened was that they did collaborate with a third employee, with an employee of the store, and the employee said, "Hey, there's this place in the attic that you can work, that you can hide in." But then he got cold feet and called the store owners. That was said in here. So he says that the victim, after fatally shooting the Gary Matthews was working the store at the time of the crime. He was identified the defendant in trial. So they had 3 people take trial, right? And indicated that prior to the crime, the defendant had told him that the defendant owed Darnell Minton, Matthews' cousin, money, and asked Matthews if he worked at the grocery store. So maybe they were going in there to collect money, but I don't know. It seems, according to Matthews, approximately 2 days later, he and the defendant and Christopher Johnson planned that the defendant and Johnson would rob the Piggly Wiggly after it closed at 9 p.m. Matthews told the defendant Johnson about the attic in the store where they could hide. But immediately prior to the crime, Matthews' cousin Taylor telephoned him and stated they're in the store. So there you have it. I have to go. But I just love Miss Jackson. If you guys want to see more of her, let me know in the comment section. Send me an email. And I'll bring you more. Oh, and I've almost forgot to say, Miss Renatza. That's the only time I don't mind when Miss Renatza says wrap it up. That was good. Good job. I mean, we got the mic drop from Miss Renatza there, the DA, and frankly, justice that was done. And maybe we'll see him again in a few years for another parole hearing. But with that, I'll let you go.
I'd like to direct your attention to 1 John chapter 1, verse 9. I want you to go and meditate on that. I want you to spend a lot of time meditating on what that says and what that means.